The girl didn't flinch when they tore the veil from her face, just stared straight ahead like the world no longer belonged to her. Her dress, once white, was soaked a dark red down the front, and no one in the crowd could say for certain whose blood it was. They didn't ask. Not in a town like Crick Hollow where secrets sold faster than truth. She was young, maybe 19, maybe younger, but her eyes were older than the dirt beneath her. As the judge called for bids, laughter broke out. Men joked about her price, her silence, her sins. Then from the back, a weathered voice rose above the noise. "All I got left is this coin, but I reckon she's worth that." Heads turned. A man stepped forward, his coat pinned at the shoulder, sleeve empty. One hand, one coin, and in his eyes, not lust or pity, but something else entirely, recognition. They brought her out just before noon, when the sun carved down through the canyon like a blade. 2 deputies flanked her, more for show than protection, though one kept a hand too tight on his holster. She moved without resistance, but not like someone broken. More like someone finished. Her dress, stiff with dried blood from shoulder to hem, caught in the wind and snapped like a warning. The crowd hushed when they saw her face. Drawn, pale, streaked with dust, but not afraid. She looked like someone who had already seen what death looked like in the mirror. They made her climb the auction block alone. Each step echoed over the cracked earth like hammer strikes on stone. She didn't stumble, didn't beg, and when she reached the top, she turned to face them, eyes dark and still, jaw set with something just shy of defiance. The dress might have once been wedding white, but now it clung to her like a grave shroud. "Name unknown," Judge Telt Harrow called out, voice rising above the murmurs. "No kin claimed, found with a knife in her hand and blood on her skin." He let the pause hang. "Bidding starts at $5. No one moved. "Not yet." Someone chuckled nervously. A miner near the back spat into the dust and muttered, "Bet she carved a man in half." Another elbowed his Freeman and said, "Pretty thing. Shame she's touched." They laughed, but not loud. There was something about her silence that didn't sit right with folks, like a story half told that might end with gunfire. She scanned the crowd. Not like she was looking for someone, like she was looking through them, and then her gaze snagged on a figure leaning against the water trough. He didn't move when their eyes met, didn't nod, just stood still with his coat draped over one shoulder, hat pulled low, and a single weathered hand resting on a cane. His other sleeve hung empty, pinned just below the shoulder seam. Most folks had forgotten his name, but not the shape of him. Ryman Holt, the hermit medic who'd once stitched half the county back together during the war, then vanished into the hills. And now he stepped forward. He didn't look at the judge, didn't raise his voice, just flipped a single silver coin into the dust. "That's all I got," he said. "She's worth it." The silver coin rolled once in the dirt and settled between the judge's boots. It wasn't even full weight, worn at the edges, like it had passed through too many hands carrying too many regrets. Judge Harrow raised an eyebrow. "You mocking this court, Holt?" Ryman didn't blink. "No court here, far as I can tell. Just men selling what don't belong to 'em." The crowd chuckled, unsure whether to cheer or duck. Harrow's smile stayed fixed, but the humor drained from his eyes. "This girl ain't free. Stabbed a man in cold blood, if the rumors hold weight." "Then let her hang," Ryman said flatly. "But if you're set on selling her, that coin's what she'll cost." A long silence followed. One of the deputies scratched his chin, clearly uncomfortable. "That ain't enough for a horse, Ryman. Hell, that ain't enough for the bullets in her." Ryman looked up at the girl. "Ain't buying her. Just redeeming what's already paid for." Delia, the name no one knew yet, watched him with a look that wasn't surprise, but something older. Recognition, maybe, or memory. Judge Harrow gave a slow, theatrical sigh. "Fine, 1 coin. If she kills you, don't come whining back to me." He nodded to the deputies. "Let her go." The one on her right hesitated before unshackling her wrists. Her arms fell free, marked red with rope burns. Still, she said nothing. just climbed down off the platform and stood beside Ryman, blood-dark dress brushing the back of his boot. "You coming?" he asked without looking at her. She gave a small nod. They walked past the crowd, past men who stared, women who whispered, and children who peeked through coat sleeves. At the edge of the square, Marshal Coy Rendell stood leaning on the rail of his office porch, one eye half shut, the other ruined and milky. He tipped his hat toward Ryman. "She's gonna bring trouble," Coy said. Ryman shrugged. "Ain't most things worth keeping?" Coy didn't answer, just lit a match and watched them disappear down the dusty road leading out of Crick Hollow. Back at the stage, the judge pocketed the coin, turned to his deputy, and muttered, "Have someone follow him. I don't like when ghosts start walking." The trail out of Crick Hollow snaked between dry cottonwoods and red clay hills that hadn't tasted rain in months. They didn't speak for the first hour. Ryman walked slow, his gait uneven from the weight of the cane. The empty sleeve of his coat flapped in the wind. Behind him, Delia kept pace with her eyes on the ground, dress trailing like a shadow she couldn't step out of. He offered her his canteen once. She didn't take it. He didn't ask again. By sundown, they reached a split in the hills where the dust gave way to coarse grass and scattered cedar. Ryman led her toward a narrow path few riders dared take. Delia paused, eyeing the steep incline ahead. "This leads to your home?" she asked, voice dry from disuse. "Closer to the sky than town," he said. "Fewer ghosts." She followed. That night, they camped beneath a bluff. Ryman built a fire with one hand, slow, practiced, and patient. Delia sat a few feet away, arms wrapped around her knees. When he offered dried beans and bread, she ate without speaking. "Name's Holt," he said after a while. "Ryman Holt. You?" She looked at the fire a long time. "Delia." He nodded once. "Wasn't sure if you could talk. Glad to hear it." "I choose not to," she replied. He didn't laugh, just chewed his bread and said, "Fair enough." As the wind picked up, she unwrapped her shawl and pulled it tight around her shoulders. Her skin bore the faint marks of old burns, like someone had once tried to carve her story into her flesh. Ryman didn't stare, but he noticed. Near midnight, she woke from a dream, shaking, breath caught in her throat. "Shiloh," she whispered. Ryman stirred but didn't speak, just tossed another log on the fire. Delia sat up, clutching the old shawl like armor. "My sister," she murmured, "the only one who ever held my hand without hurting me." He watched the flame. "Where is she now?" Delia didn't answer. In the quiet that followed, a soft rustle came from behind a rock outcrop. A boy, maybe 10, emerged, barefoot, lean, dust-streaked. He gave a little wave to Ryman. Delia jumped. "This is Lark," Ryman said calmly. "Follows me when he's hungry. Ain't got people of his own." Lark grinned and sat beside Delia, close but not touching. She stared at him a moment, then handed him the rest of her bread. And for the first time that day, the blood on her dress no longer felt like the loudest thing in the world. The second morning on Ryman's land smelled of cedar smoke and wild mint. His cabin sat tucked between two boulders, half swallowed by the hill like it was trying to disappear from the world. Delia stood at the edge of the clearing, staring at the roofline. It was small, worn, but it looked like it hadn't known violence in years. She didn't know how to feel about that. "Water's down the path," Ryman said, nodding to the slope. "Cold, but clean." She hesitated, then took the bucket and disappeared into the trees. Lark followed at a distance, careful not to scare her. She didn't speak to him, but she didn't stop him either. The silence between them was simple, not cruel. Later that afternoon, Ryman repaired the chicken coop fencing, and Delia, unasked, joined him. She moved like someone who'd built things before, hands fast, motions efficient. When he asked where she learned it, she shrugged. "You don't survive men like Judge Harrow without learning to fix what they break." That night, they ate stew by the fire inside the cabin. Lark dozed near the hearth. Ryman wiped his bowl clean and leaned back. "That blood on your dress," he said. It ain't yours, is it? Delia froze. Ryman didn't press. He just looked at her gently, as if giving her permission not to answer. But she did. It belonged to a man named Merton Coyce. He bought my sister, left her bones in a ravine behind his house. I found him drinking whiskey on his porch. I didn't use a gun. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was full. Was he the first? Ryman asked. No, she whispered. Just the last. Outside, the wind stirred, and something snapped beyond the cabin walls. Ryman was up in an instant, lantern lit, stepping out the door with the shotgun tucked beneath his arm. Delia followed, her pulse suddenly loud in her ears. In the distance, a fire burned, small but deliberate, near the barn. Ryman cursed under his breath. Someone had left a torch planted upright in a haystack, but hadn't lit the whole thing, just enough to rattle them. Who would, she began, but Ryman cut her off. Message. Someone wants you scared. Delia stepped toward the flame. It won't work. Ryman watched her carefully. Maybe not, but it means they're close. He doused the torch with a bootful of dirt. The glow vanished, but the scent of smoke lingered. Inside, Delia sat by the hearth again. She reached for her dress and began to stitch the torn hem. Not to repair it, but to make it ready. She didn't sleep that night. Neither did Ryman. The fire between them burned low, casting long shadows across the cabin walls. Outside, Lark snored soft against a pile of folded quilts, one thumb still tucked near his mouth. Delia sat cross-legged, the old dress spread across her lap. She'd cleaned it in the creek at first light, but the stain never left. It had soaked too deep, into the threads, into her skin, into memory. You said his name was Coyce, Ryman murmured. Delia didn't look up. That's right. You kill him quick? Her hands stilled. Quicker than he deserved. He nodded once as if she'd confirmed something he already knew. I met Merton once, back in the war. Ran supplies for the army, offered rides to runaways. Said he was helping. Ryman leaned forward, elbows on knees. Men like him talk like saints and live like devils. Delia stared at the fire. He bought my sister Shiloh when she was 15, lied about her age, claimed he needed a house girl. She die there? Delia's voice was low. I think she died the day he opened the door. The words hung like smoke in the room, curling slow and bitter. I tracked him down after I found her grave, she continued. It wasn't marked, just a rock. He was sitting on the porch drinking peach whiskey, humming like a hymn. I didn't plan it. I just saw the knife on the table, and my hands did what they knew. Ryman didn't flinch. You carrying guilt? No, she said, sharper than she meant to. Just wait. He nodded. That's different. They sat for a while in silence. Then Ryman said, I lost men too, on my table, screaming for mothers who weren't coming. I stitched up boys I knew were already dead just to keep my hands from shaking. We don't get to choose what stays with us. Delia looked at him. Then why take me? 'Cause I saw a woman walking in chains who didn't look chained at all, and that meant something. A log popped in the fire. Lark stirred and mumbled something about milk. Delia smiled faintly. He reminds me of Shiloh, she said. Always hungry, always watching. You gonna stay? Ryman asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, if the fire comes again, I'll be ready this time. He reached over, gently took the edge of the blood-stained dress, and folded it once like a flag. Good, he said. Then let him come. The wind changed that morning. It came hard from the east, carrying with it the sharp tang of leather, gun oil, and sweat. Ryman smelled it before he heard the hooves. 4 riders, one with a silver badge, another with the swagger of a man who thought he owned the sky. Judge Telt Harrow had come. Delia was chopping firewood when the dust began to rise. She set the axe down carefully, not like someone afraid, but like someone measuring the weight of what was coming. Lark ran to her side. She knelt and whispered something in his ear. He disappeared into the brush without argument. Ryman stepped out of the cabin with his shotgun cradled casually in one arm. He didn't wear his coat today. The pinned sleeve hung loose, the scarred stump of his shoulder bare to the sun. The judge pulled up his horse, grinning wide. "Thought you'd run farther, Holt." "Didn't feel the need," Ryman replied. Harrow gestured to Delia. "That girl belongs to the law. She's wanted for murder, evading arrest, and crossing county lines without permit." "She also ain't yours to sell anymore," Ryman said calmly. "You took a coin. That was a deal." Harrow snorted. "A coin buys silence, not amnesty. She's coming with us. Easy way or the hard way." Marshal Coy Rendell rode behind Harrow, slouched and silent. His one good eye scanned the yard. When it landed on Delia, he looked like a man remembering something he didn't want to. Delia stepped forward. "I won't run," she said. Ryman turned his head. "You don't have to." One of Harrow's men reached for his rifle. Ryman's shotgun came up. Not fast, but steady. The standoff turned the air electric. Coy cleared his throat, loud. "Judge," he said slowly, "this girl was auctioned. You called it legal. You pocketed the coin. That means she was bought fair." Harrow sneered. "By a cripple and a ghost?" "She's not a prisoner," Ryman said. "She's family now. You want her? You'll have to take us all." From the trees, a soft snap echoed. A lark, small but brave, had set a slingshot stone in his palm and aimed it straight at Harrow's mouth. The judge froze. The moment stretched, seconds tipping into something worse. Then Coy nudged his horse forward. "We're done here," he said. "You want blood? Do it yourself. I'm not pulling that trigger." Harrow hesitated, jaw clenched. Then he turned his horse sharply and galloped away, leaving dust and silence behind him. The dust hadn't settled before Delia exhaled. Not relief, something deeper. A release she didn't trust yet. She watched the road long after Harrow vanished from sight, as if expecting him to return with a noose and 5 more guns. But no one came. Only the wind. Ryman lowered his shotgun and sat slowly on the porch steps. He looked tired, but not afraid. Delia walked over, stood beside him in the fading light. "Why didn't you let me go?" He looked up at her with that steady, worn-out gaze. "Because you didn't need saving. You needed someone to stop treating you like a sin." Behind them, Coy remained in his saddle, head bowed. The lawman said nothing until Lark emerged from the trees, dragging a stick like a sword. Coy chuckled dryly and dismounted. He approached Delia, then reached into his coat. She flinched just slightly. Coy noticed and slowed. He pulled out a folded paper. "Land deed. I never filed the old one after the war. Guess it's time someone honest owned this land." He handed it to her. Delia unfolded it. Her name had been written in dark ink across the bottom. Delia Varn Holt, co-owner. Her hands trembled. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. Coy gave a lopsided shrug. "Maybe not, but a man with one hand reminded me what the other's for." He tipped his hat and walked away without another word, his horse trailing close behind. Ryman stared at the ground. He ain't wrong. Some things you can't hold with a full grip anyway. Trust, dignity, that kind of thing slips through fingers when you squeeze too hard. Delia sat beside him. "I've been used, hunted, and forgotten. That man back there, he wanted to erase me." Ryman nodded. "So don't let him." She looked out across the land where the dry grass bowed in waves. Lark was building something by the barn. 2 sticks and a stone pile, his own version of a fortress. Ryman reached for the hem of her blood-stained dress, gently touching the threads. "You gonna keep wearing that?" Delia thought about it. "No, but I won't burn it either." He smiled faintly. "Good. That stain. It's not your shame. It's your proof." The days that followed were slow, not with dread, but with the strange stillness of peace that hadn't yet found its shape. Delia woke early, helped tend the garden that barely clung to life on the rocky hill. Lark followed her like a shadow, handing her seeds with sticky fingers, humming songs only he seemed to know. Ryman spent hours repairing the barn roof, one arm and sheer will making up for what the war had taken. Delia didn't wear the blood-stained dress anymore. She washed it one last time, folded it with care, and stored it in a wooden box near the hearth. Not as a reminder of who she had been, but of who she refused to become. In its place, she stitched together a new one from pieces of old feed sacks, lace from an abandoned chapel, and the hem of Shiloh's last apron. She wore it not with pride, but with presence. One afternoon, Lark brought her to a place just beyond the fence where the grass grew tall and a crooked cedar leaned like an old man listening to secrets. "Here," he said, pointing. He said, "This is where we put things we don't want lost." Ryman stood nearby, holding a wooden cross he had carved with a dull knife and determination. He offered it to Delia. She traced her fingers over the uneven letters carved into the grain. Shiloh Varn. She was never anyone's to own. Delia knelt, placing the cross in the dirt. She didn't cry, she just closed her eyes and whispered something no one else heard. Ryman placed a hand on her shoulder. Steady, warm, whole in a way no hand ever had to be. On the way back, they passed the chicken coop. Lark had painted the side in sloppy red strokes, a crooked heart, and 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, one in a long dress with wild hair. Delia laughed, a soft, sudden sound that startled even herself. Inside the cabin that night, Ryman handed her the deed again. "It's all legal now. You're not someone's property. You're someone who owns something." Delia smiled, holding the paper like a flag. "No," she said. "I'm someone who builds something." The fire cracked, and the light danced on the wall behind them. And in the box near the hearth, the blood-stained dress rested, silent, folded, finished. Not forgotten, but forgiven.